Welcome to the Deep in State presented by 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐸𝐿. I'm Nick Hawks. On today's episode, we have Todd Haselhorst, founder at Heale Labs. This episode is sponsored by 𝐒𝐮𝐻awks & Associates, the most experienced DePIN consultancy in the space. We help projects develop strategy, messaging, and token incentives. We'll have a little bit more on us later in the show. Before we get started, hit the like, subscribe, smash the bell, all those things. That helps us keep bringing great guests like Todd to you. Todd, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm psyched. So we've been talking for a little bit over a year. So I know what you do, but folks watching this may not. What is it that you do at Healy?
Yeah, so at Healy, we built technology that connects all the different systems together in the logistics industry. Then we standardize the data between them so everybody's working off of the same data, tokenize the underlying assets, and then incentivize best practices during a shipment, like delivering on time, not damaging goods, providing tracking data in transit. Ultimately, things that help streamline the shipment lifecycle.
Awesome. It's a really good application, like kind of a real business, which is logistics. And it's kind of like a dry business for most things, linking into a DePIN project. So can you talk a little bit about how this thing links into DePIN and why you guys think DePIN is a good move for you?
Yeah, sure. So what we're using our token for is ultimately incentivizing behaviors that create value to the overall network, which is very similar to, I think, all DePIN projects. And we use that token to really solve that cold start problem and also to generate the flywheel effect within, in this case, within the logistics industry. So we're leveraging the same thought processes, the same methodologies that DePIN leverages, but we're doing so in the logistics industry, which already has the hardware distributed on the trucks, on the trailers, in the warehouses.
A couple of folks have tried to do this. I know we've talked about this before, and you're like, oh man, walk me through maybe what they did and that you think that Healy is going to solve.
Sure. So there's really two schools of thought. You have the permissioned chain side of the world, which was led by IBM, Maersk, FedEx, and then you have the permissionless side of the world. The permission side of the world got a lot of the attention. Everybody was running around saying blockchain was the future of logistics. And ultimately what they ran into was that a permissioned blockchain is not that much different from a distributed ledger, and therefore you could just run it on a database. And so a lot of the implementations there were too expensive. They were not feasible from a return on investment perspective. And also they were primarily driven by enterprise, when in reality, the vast majority of the logistics industry is small fleet owner operators, mom and pops, 1 to 5 trucks. That makes up 80% of the industry. So you had this misalignment of incentives. And ultimately, what that camp realized was that open and decentralized are the killer features of Bitcoin and Web3. But on that side, on the permissionless side, the blockchains were too slow. They were too expensive. They weren't scalable. Throughput was too low. And without zero knowledge proofs, you couldn't put a private network on a public chain. So all of those things are now possible with layer 2s, with zero knowledge proofs. And so we're building that permissionless, decentralized, open logistics network that leverages the token to incentivize different behaviors that ultimately drives adoption and also drives efficiency in that transaction, and creates an economic incentive for people to leverage the network, leverage the data, and do the right thing during a shipment.
Got it. So walk me through kind of how a shipment works from the time that, I don't know, where do you think it starts? Maybe the customer orders something, it gets put into a truck, and then how what you guys are doing interacts with that.
Sure. So there's 3 parts of a shipment. You have pre-transit, which happens before something is picked up. You have in transit, which happens after something has been picked up. And then you have post-transit, which is after something's been delivered. So the way that our network works is during pre-transit, we have the identities and the reputations of the individuals and the businesses that are involved in that transaction. We have that for them to establish a relationship with each other. So in a digital way, right? So those parties come together. Either they have a contract where I've agreed to move a certain amount of your freight for this price, or it's in the spot market where it's more ad hoc and we came across each other. I'm in Miami and I just so happen to be going to LA. So yeah, I can move your goods, right? So we agree to a transaction. That transaction, we create a escrow smart contract memorializing the relationship, saying, I am going to pick up a truckload of pallets from this location at this date and this time. I'm going to drive them to Los Angeles and I'm going to deliver them between this date and this time. So that smart contract is created, memorializing that relationship and what we've agreed to. Then our network grabs data at origin when I pick up that shipment, during transit as I'm driving to Los Angeles, and then at that destination, ultimately to validate whether or not I, as the driver, did what I said I was going to do. I as the driver, the carrier, the broker, and the shipper, did they all do what they said that they were going to do? And if all the conditions of that smart contract were met, payments are distributed, I receive my money, then all the parties involved in that transaction are enrolled into that reward pool, where they're then receive rewards based on how they did during that shipment. So on the shipper and broker side, did I provide the carrier with accurate and complete data? Do I have a history of paying my bills on time? Did I have low dock time at origin and at destination? Did I use digital documentation like electronic bill of lading or electronic proof of delivery? If yes, on those things, then I'm enrolled into those reward pools. I receive rewards for those behaviors once that transaction has been settled, and once we're in that post-transit portion of the shipment lifecycle. Then on the carrier and driver side, did I provide you with tracking data during transit? Could you see that I'd picked up here in Miami, drove all the way across the country, delivered it in Los Angeles? Did I damage your goods during transit? Did I pick up and deliver on time? And was I fuel efficient in doing so? So all of those behaviors are beneficial to the counterparty. And so the network really just aligns all those parties together, creates that incentive structure to incentivize those behaviors that ultimately make that whole shipment process, whether it's pre-transit, in transit, and post-transit, as seamless as possible. And then the more transactions I do on the network, the more reputational data builds up, and the more transactions are going to come my way, because ultimately people can trust that I'm really good at picking something up in Miami and delivering it to Los Angeles.
Across the country.
Yep.
Yeah. Dang, that's rad, because there's so many different moving parts. Okay, so we'll get into those in a second. Let's take a quick break to talk about today's sponsor, Goldhawks and Associates. We're a DePIN consultant firm helping projects with strategy, messaging, and token incentives. We run a blog for founders over at goldandhawks.com. Produce this show, and most importantly, work with the core teams and communities of your favorite projects in the space to ensure tokenomics and incentives are fully aligned to build out some of the most badass physical infrastructure networks in the world. If your project needs help with any of these, check out goldandhawks.com. So, Todd, when I'm thinking about what you're doing at Healy, it sounds a lot like this could end up being like the Uber of logistics. Now, am I getting that wrong? Like, can I get in my Toyota, my 2004 Tacoma, and be like, yeah, I'm going to sign up and start transporting packages? Or are there kind of onboarding steps that I need to go through before I use whatever my vehicle? Like, how small can it be?
Yeah. So our primary focus is on logistics. So,
like professional drivers. Okay.
Yeah. Class 7, class 8. We're primarily focused on semis and companies that need to have licensing. So if you're a carrier, you have to be licensed. If you're a broker, you have to be licensed with the Department of Transportation.
Okay.
We're really focused on those, the big shipping that most that moves our economy.
Yeah. Now, is this something where maybe who are you most excited to get to talk to with this? Are you looking for access into kind of trucking unions or truckers themselves? Is it more for carriers or brokers, or is it everyone is super important and there's no one that you guys don't already touch?
Yeah. So as part of our go-to-market strategy, we're focused on transportation management systems and freight brokers because there's a lot of value we can bring them. We can bring them additional streams of revenue. We can streamline their operations. We can eliminate the number of integrations that they have to do. There's a lot of benefits that we bring to those parties.
Yeah.
So,
so you're really jumping people into the future with this. Like you're saying like, hey, not only are you going digital, but you're going straight to this Web3 piece.
Yeah. And we're incentivizing digital, right? One of the challenges in logistics and supply chain is I get paid the same if I use a piece of paper versus a digital document, even though the digital document makes it easier for everybody else downstream. So we're incentivizing digitization. We're incentivizing best practices. We're incentivizing data mining, if you will. And ultimately to help move that process, that shipment lifecycle along as seamlessly as possible.
And what's the reception like so far? Are truckers like, hell yeah, I'll sign up for this, like show me where to get a wallet? Or is it more like, all right, I'm gonna have to show you how to do this? Like what does it look like so far?
Yeah, so far people have been very receptive. They understand the problem set, which is ultimately bad data. They understand that they're operating off of irrelevant, out of date information. And they understand that there's a lot of benefit in leveraging data infrastructure or shared data infrastructure to help smooth out that shipment process, because there may be 5, 10, 20 different companies involved in shipments and moving something from point A to point B, especially when you get into international and maritime.
Whew. Yeah, because you have the carrier, the broker, the driver, I guess the receiver. There's like all these different people that are, or entities that are a part of the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's only that's if one carrier is touching it. A lot of times you'll have multiple carriers picking it up, dropping it off, picking it up, dropping it off. Or if it's intermodal, or if it's maritime, you'll have one person picking it up. Let's say, in Thailand, they'll drive it to the port, drop it off at the port. Port will take ship to ship. A lot of times it may go to another port. It'll get offloaded, moved on to another vessel. So that happens all the time. And each one of those companies, different data, different documentation, different information, different databases, different systems. And so we're just creating technology so that they can all use the same information no matter where they're at in the shipment lifecycle.
Dig it. I guess the term to define there is intermodal. Just means it's going from like ground to air to maritime or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how does it work if one of the entities isn't signed up with Healy, right? So most of them are, but it goes whatever. The person in Thailand or the company in Thailand's like, no, we're not touching that. Like, how does that work?
It just defaults to their current mode of operations. And since one of the parties is already working with the network, they can upload the data and they can keep that master record updated.
Oh, interesting. So not everybody has to be involved, but the more people are involved, the more they get to split out the pie for themselves versus. Got it.
Exactly.
Okay. Super, super cool, dude. Where do people go to learn a little bit more about what you guys are doing?
All right, HealeLabs.com. You can also find us at Healy Community in Telegram. That's where we're having a lot of the conversation.
Right on. And it's still super early. I know we've been talking about this for a while. Like, so for you and I, it's not that early, but for folks actually using this thing, really cool to see this thing growing. It's neat to kind of been watching the Discord and see how people are like, hey, what is this thing? What's going on here? How's this work? How's this happening? So super cool there.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's been very humbling. We've gotten a lot of traction across the board, and we're very excited about launching with it in July of this year. And we got a lot of transaction volume that's ready to go onto the network, and more partners that are signing up on a monthly basis. So very, very exciting times.
Yeah, I'm psyched to see where it goes. Todd, thanks so much for making the time coming on. I know you're super busy. Appreciate you
Absolutely
sharing what you're doing with the world.
Thanks, guys.